Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. The days are starting to get shorter and students are heading back to school in some places across the country. All signs that it won't be long before combines start rolling in those fields. Max Armstrong recently had a chance to get out to central Illinois to talk with a farmer about their combine plans for the 2025 harvest season.
We had the privilege of meeting up with Keith Gonnerman of Gonnerman Farms at Ashton, Illinois, who described for us their operation.
We farm today 4,000 acres, primarily corn and soybeans. We also grow seed corn for Corteva, and about 70-30 split, 70% corn and 30% soybeans.
Gonnerman Farms has had a long history with Case IH, as it turns out.
We've had a red combine on our farm my entire life. We moved to the flagship combine, I guess it was about 6 years ago, with 8240, and then we've traded every year into a new combine. Last year we had a 9250. This year we're going to be running the 9260 series. We think the grain quality is excellent. When you walk behind our combine, you just don't find a lot of grain loss on the ground.
Like the Gonnermans, you'll meet many farmers who have run red for generations. Case IH will tell you one of the reasons is that every part of their machines is made with producers in mind.
Talk about hitting the value of what producers want is looking at grain quality, grain savings, crop adaptability, but then simplicity is listening to those producers, what they want in their products.
In 2024, Case IH rolled out a new machine every 90 days. As these combines prepare to enter their first harvest season, Case IH Harvest Segment Lead Leo Bose talks about the industry's reaction so far.
Oh, the feedback, and you look at 8 different models that we have, from a 160 series to a 260 to a now AF series. Customers are really talking about the productivity or the efficiency.
It seems like the harvest can be in such a contracted period sometimes. The available days can be so few in some harvest seasons. That's when you really need the efficiency, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's critical. I think one of the great benefits of the Case IH technology is that you are able to harvest in multiple conditions. There's actually 4 different automation settings in the combine. We primarily use the productivity or the grain quality settings. But if you're in tougher conditions, wetter conditions, it's easy to adjust that with the automation.
Keith is utilizing Case IH's patented Harvest Command automation technology to adjust to crop conditions, and automation is increasingly important to Case IH customers as they look to improve their yield.
And what they've said about automation is that, they can now set those machines and let the machines set themselves. So they never had to be on the phone or the two-way to make those settings or adjustments. So Harvest Command just allows them to be more productive, and they get that grain quality that they're looking for with that basically 0 losses.
Harvest Command also brings the simplicity Leo talked about, which can help farmers solve for skilled labor shortages.
Just the ease of setup. The automation controls. You could really put anybody without a lot of skill in the combine to run it with all the automation.
Harvest Command is just one of the subscription-free technologies integrated into the new Case IH combines, and Keith looks forward to utilizing additional enhanced technologies as he prepares to get his new 9260 series combine out of the field.
With the 9260 series combine, we're going to have the automated integrated row guidance, Row Guide Pro, being integrated into the combine. That's something we're really excited about. And then I'm already looking at the AF9 for next year, so we're looking at the new technology next year, and real excited about what Case IH is continuing to develop.
Case IH certainly has a combine for every producer, and they seem to have a technology to meet every need as well.
Thank you, Max. And folks, if you've got questions about new Case combines, be sure to stop by their exhibit at the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois this year. Our market segment this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up on these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. Well, it's time to dig into these markets, and joining us this week is Dan Huber of the Huber Report. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, the big talk is that big crops get bigger this year with the good weather. That seemed to be the theme this past week. Dan, is there more downside ahead of this corn market before the WASDE report next week?
Well, of course, a lot will hinge on what the WASDE report actually has to say, but I think we've probably reached a point of somewhat of a value. I mean, we have seen a little business pick up, particularly in the corn market as of late. So I wouldn't be surprised we kind of stagnate, maybe even just float a little bit sideways between now and the reports. Trade certainly has appeared to have built in pretty solid production numbers, close to 16 billion for corn, and I think the average trade guess now for the report next week is 183.3, 184, up in that neck of the woods. So certainly record yield. So we factored a lot of bearish news in here already. So.
From your perspective, that 183, 184 bushels per acre, does that seem like a reasonable target for this next report?
I would have to say so. Granted, I haven't traveled the entire nation, but I have traveled Iowa and Illinois, or parts of northern Illinois, and up through Wisconsin. And the stunning part is that the uniformity. I mean, it just looks good everywhere. You don't see washout areas. You don't see dried up areas on hills. It's pretty incredible how good this crop looks. Granted, that doesn't guarantee a yield, but stacks the odds in that favor. So.
And as we look out of this new corn crop, we're getting it sold, right? Exports are strong for new crop corn?
New crop sales have been picking up. So it's, not that we don't have a long ways to go. We've, of course, got a lot of crop to try to market. If you look at, again, the numbers, they're thinking carry out could push up towards 1.9 billion at the end of next year. Every year at this time, of course, you factor in the biggest you can, so that may not materialize. But those kind of numbers will tend to keep prices relatively depressed. So
anything producers ought to be doing with this big crop that looks good out in the field following the report, Dan? Any advice?
Well, at this point in time, I guess I wouldn't sell into the desperation side of it. But if we do get post report rallies, certainly keep your marketing hat on. And in years like this, you tend to find a low, maybe a little bit earlier than normal. You don't have to necessarily get all the way October, and then you start working higher from there. But boy, again, there's really nothing in the cards that say we have a substantial rally ahead of us. So if you see prices that are going to make you return, you better take advantage of them.
Dan, you mentioned that sales have been okay. We're seeing good export demand for our corn products. We've also seen a drop in the value of the U.S. dollar recently. Is that a tailwind here for corn exports?
Certainly it's going to help. And again, it is a counterbalance. And I think in times past we even talked about, when you have higher tariffs, if the dollar deteriorates, it kind of is a counterbalance to importers. The dollar's down about 15% so far this year, although that doesn't necessarily make up to 25% tariff increases, but it does help soften the blow just a little bit. If anything, I think this dollar looks like further into the year and into next year could move into lower ground yet. So that will be at least a bonus, or at least a small helping hand to hopefully stimulate some demand on the export side.
Absolutely. Lots to watch here as we get deeper into this marketing season, deeper into this big harvest.
Absolutely.
We'll be back. We'll talk about soybeans and what's happening in the wheat market with Dan Huber after this. Our market segment this week is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up on these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. We're talking with Dan Huber of the Huber Report. Dan, we talked about corn. Now I want to get your thoughts on the wheat market. That is an ugly chart in Chicago wheat. Are we close to a bottom?
Well, it would be nice to think so. I mean, and it seems like corn and wheat have taken turns on leading to the downside. They've both been kind of a death spiral here for the last month and a half. It's a little bit late. Usually you look for lows in wheat around the 1st of July. Here we are in the 1st of August. Psychologically, we've gotten right down to the $5 level. So I think that could provide some support. Here, as with corn, you're seeing a little bit of a pickup in export demand. Harvest, pretty well done on the winter wheat crop. I think 85% here last week, and getting underway on the spring wheat crop. So it's just from a harvest standpoint, we're going to relieve that pressure. So the best thing we could hope for at that point is to get a little more pickup in the export demand, and I think it kind of lift us away from those levels. Like corn, though, you're probably not going to see any extreme moves to the upside. So it's going to be pretty gradual and more of a value type of situation.
At the end of the day, it sounds like on both corn, wheat, and I'm sure we'll talk in soybeans, the challenge is just ample supplies.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're just sitting on a boatload.
Globally, although we'll see what these numbers say next week, globally, particularly when you look at corn and wheat, we're not really looking at burdensome supplies. But, we've had this perfect year where no one has had a crop issue. So you need to have some kind of a scare tactic to get prices to lift away from here, and that just hasn't happened anywhere.
And it certainly hasn't happened in the soybean market, Dan. We're watching for that supply and demand report next week also to have some updates there. Do we expect the yield for this new crop soybean to rise?
I'm not looking for a big adjustment. I think the average estimate is 52.9, almost 53 bushel the acre. The July report was 52.5. Again, a record yield. I think a lot of people will look at beans and say, well, August is the month that really makes or breaks the bean yield, so we're not going to get too excited about adjusting yields here just yet. That said, at 52.5 or even 52.9, even with the reduction of 3 million acres this year, we're going to produce as many beans as we did a year ago. And then you compound that with record production in South America. And when you look at all told, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, we're looking at 550, 560 million more bushel of beans out of South America this year. So, for the next several months, they capture the market.
Boy, what would our carryout look like in soybeans if we end up at that 52.9?
Well, could push up upwards of the 400 million, 390, 400 million bushels again. Again, I guess you wouldn't say it's just an overwhelming number, but certainly very ample, particularly, I say, with South America. Staging to even push production further down the road.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And of course, then they're exporting a lot of those beans, which means we've got to use ours here at home. Domestic crush, Dan, staying strong?
Crush has been strong, and again, of course, one of the issues there is we're crushing beans really to get the oil. Oil's been the big market there, and there you have the age-old problem. When you crush a soybean, you get 48 pounds of meal, you get 11 pounds or so about of oil, so you end up with more meal than you necessarily need. It hasn't been a real burden so far, but cattle numbers are not growing. Poultry numbers are pretty stagnant. Hog numbers, a little bit stronger, but certainly not changing a lot. So and then you've got the fight between cheap corn and meal. So it's not good for the demand there.
It's not. Lots to watch as we get deeper into the season. Dan Huber, thank you so much for joining us this week.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
This weather segment is brought to you by SprayTech, making your spray applications effective and convenient. Use it once, trust it always. Greg Solier has been watching those maps and charts across the country. And Greg, for the Pacific Northwest, are they expected to collect any more moisture next week?
A little bit, but in the meantime, it's hot high pressure, part of the northern extension of that southwestern high, the one that's migrating through the Corn Belt and the plains over the past several weeks in summertime season. Its northern extent bringing maybe some triple-digit readings into parts of the northern Great Basin, Intermountain West, and there's a weak weather system on shore. Really in the Gulf of Alaska, there's a more substantial upper air wave on the move. On the front side of this thing, at least again, some modest drought improvement in select areas of Montana. And there were some delays on spring grain harvest across parts of the Canadian Prairie and parts of the Dakotas coming off last week's showers and thunderstorms. So some drought relief, but at the same time, you trade off some delays, but you'll get back out there. It's a more significant trough. Here it is, the dip in the jet stream across the northern Rockies. Cooler air, not much in the way of any organized shower activity. Maybe more of these dry-based thunderstorms. And boy, the fires have been going here, out of Utah and Arizona, of course, the headlines across the Canadian Prairie. But again, a couple of showers and thunderstorms as the heat begins to build back into the northern and central plains. You can see how these frontal boundaries oscillate back and forth between the hot dome and some weakness up aloft. And here's the main motherlode of the heat, 115, almost 120-degree heat across sections of Death Valley last week. And on its eastern flank, at times, a couple of showers and thunderstorms. We'll see that as well. Some of this triple-digit heat across sections, the south end and central end of the winter wheat belt. Need more moisture with planting getting going. Of course, livestock always have an issue with the heat, of course, and the heat continues on over the southwest much of the rest of the week. Somewhat cooler air into the valleys of California. The onshore flow continues with morning low clouds and sprinkles into parts of Southern California near San Diego. The heat and humidity tempered a bit with scattered showers and thunderstorms, maybe heavy and severe over parts of the central and southern plains.
Well, you said heat a lot in that description, Greg. Does that heat push its way to the central part of the U.S.?
Back and forth, we're going to see kind of retrograde back to the west, build back in next to the end part of the week and the following week as well. We're not done with it, but matter of fact, there's a lot of heat in the forecast, but at the same time, hopefully some showers and thunderstorms. And I can't remember when I'm going to make this statement, 30% of the topsoil in surplus mode in Iowa. You're running the sprinkler out there, aren't you? There you go. And here we go with the frontal boundary here. Cooler, drier air to the upper Midwest, northern and eastern Corn Belt. A couple of showers into the Ohio Valley, but the heat builds back in. The frontal boundaries are strung on out along this jet stream pattern. Here come the convective clusters of showers and thunderstorms. Need a little more rain. We're still kind of dry in the drought monitor in this particular part of Illinois and parts of Indiana. More will be coming, though, to help on some of those late planted varieties. Maybe a little monsoon setup across the Rio Grande, the heat into the southern plains, scattered showers across parts of the Delta region where more rain is needed. We're actually beginning to dry out in some of these cotton fields, and not much going on in the tropics, mind you, as we have been talking about here. The heat building back into the southern plains, triple-digit readings in the southwestern reaches of the country, as it ought to be for practically mid-August across the southern reaches of the country.
Take us out east, Greg. What do you see as you look farther to the east coast?
Again, some drier areas are still into play, but at least the rains so far have been timely. A little less stress into Michigan, parts of Illinois, in some of those drier reaches. Scattered showers across the Ohio Valley. Cooler, drier air, far more comfortable go of it with outdoor work across the Great Lakes region, but the boundaries shift back to the north. Jet stream winds over the top. Here comes some of this 90-plus degree air via the southwestern Corn Belt, and the storm clusters again are lined on up. So each day, maybe disappointing in coverages and amounts, but cumulatively speaking, ought to get some meaningful rain back across the Corn Belt, Mid-Atlantic region. Otherwise, cooler, drier air setting up across the Northeast and New England. No tropical systems here or across the Southwest Atlantic. Remember, told you so. As we get into September, October, different story. Cooler, drier air for the Ohio Valley. Scattered showers and thunderstorm over some of the drier reaches of the Cotton Belt. Yeah, and then we've had too much rain into the Mid-Atlantic region and parts of Georgia, where more showers and thunderstorms are back in the forecast. Down through areas of Florida. Don't worry about this weather system. Just more rain for coastal sections of the Mid-Atlantic region. The heat is back into play into the southern plains. The 4-week forecast later in the hour.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. We've been looking forward to harvest a lot in this episode, and I know that American farmers are excited about harvest as well. But what happens if on your operation somebody gets sick, an accident happens, and you're unable to complete that harvest? Well, it's a catastrophe for an individual farm unless you've got help. Well, joining me now is Ben Smith. He's the Farm Operations Manager for Corn Belt States at Farm Rescue. And Ben, Farm Rescue can help if we're in a challenge like that, can't they?
That's right, Mike. We've been doing this for 20 years now. It's our 20th anniversary this year, and we can provide some free equipment, labor, or any of the combination of the two to help relieve that stress on the family when they have an unexpected illness, injury, or natural disaster pop up that's going to negatively affect their normal farming operations. And we're always looking for more families to help, so we're ready to go for this fall.
Now, you mentioned 20 years in existence. Ben, if you would give us the history of Farm Rescue. You started up in the Dakotas, but the growth has just been nonstop.
Yeah, it did start 20 years ago in North Dakota with our founder, Bill Gross, who's a full-time pilot for UPS, actually, flying freight all over the world. But he still wanted to give back to the farming community when he retired, so he had the idea of maybe getting his own tractor and planter and helping a farmer plant when they suffered an illness or injury. And his co-pilot challenged him, why wait till you're retired? Let's get this going now if there's a need. And so he did. He got it going 20 years ago, and it's slowly grown into 10 states now, and we've helped over 1,200 families since it started.
Talk to us about what it's like if a farmer needs help or if a farm operation needs some assistance. How does Farm Rescue get involved, and what does that help look like from the organization?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, it's difficult for farmers to ask for help. They've grown their business by having to figure out a way to get things done themselves, and we get that. We've all been there ourselves on the farm. But typically, another family member or neighbor or somebody in the community will refer the family to us. They'll say, hey, did you hear that so-and-so suffered this? And would you mind reaching out to them to see if you might be able to help? And that's how we start the process. So we take that referral, we contact the family and ask if they've heard of Farm Rescue and tell them a little bit about how it works. Then we ask if we can help them, and that usually is a better way to start off the process. Then once we get that started, we'll do an on-site visit to the farm to see exactly what they have going on. We'll sit down with them and make a detailed plan to do the work the way they want it done. And after we have the plan in place, I go and I find the right equipment and the right volunteers to operate the equipment and show up and execute when the family wants us there.
Now, we've talked a lot about harvest, but the work that Farm Rescue can assist with is a lot bigger than just harvest, as I understand it. Ben, talk about some of the folks that you've helped. What are some of the operations you've assisted with?
Yeah, so planting is our other big operation we assist with. We do air seeding and row crop planting in our 10 states. And then we do some round hay baling as well in the summer. And of course, wheat harvest and any other crop that we can get through a John Deere combine, we can help with harvesting. Cattle feeding is the one livestock we can help with because it's primarily outdoors and machinery based, as well as just cattle feed ingredient hauling or commodity hauling with our semis.
Okay, so we had a lot of assistance there. Now, of course, you're always looking for families to help, but I imagine the component, the other side of that would be volunteers to run the combines or drive the trucks and tractors. How is Farm Rescue situated from that perspective?
Yeah, we actually are sitting pretty good on volunteers. If somebody is qualified and has some time coming up in their schedule, whether they're retiring or slowing down from work and have that flexibility and want to help, we always encourage new volunteers to sign up on our website, and we'll reach out to them to get to know them a little better with a phone interview and see if we can match them up. But we are looking for more families to help every year. We've got more volunteers right now than we have families available to assign them to. So we'd love people to refer more families and fully utilize our resources to help as many people as possible each year.
Now, geographically, as you're looking for folks, particularly for this harvest season, are you looking for more help in any particular geography, or is it just you're willing to help out in any one of the 10 states?
Yeah, North Dakota, where it all started, is typically pretty well covered. We get quite a bit of regular families signing up and everything up there, but our other 9 states, especially down here in the Corn Belt with Illinois, Wisconsin, our new state of Kentucky that we just added, we definitely want more families to sign up and get the ball rolling in those states.
Well, and of course, you'll be in Illinois a little bit later this month. Farm Rescue will be at the Farm Progress Show. We're excited to partner and tell the story of Farm Rescue, help keep farm families on their operations. But tell us a little bit about what you'll be bringing down to the Farm Progress Show.
Yeah, we can't wait to be back in Decatur. This will be the second year that we'll have our own display space through the generous donation of the folks at Farm Progress, giving us some space to have our own display and attract more people in to learn about Farm Rescue and spread the mission and the story. So we plan to have one of our grain hopper semis there. In the background, we'll have our bush light wrapped pickup, and we should have a John Deere combine and a tractor and baler and some other things there to drive the conversation and draw people in. You know, we'll be at booth 1252.
Booth 1252, and you mentioned the John Deere combine. You've partnered with a number of equipment manufacturers to make this happen, correct?
Correct. John Deere has been a great partner from the beginning on the equipment side that we rent or buy, but sometimes we will just send operators to run the family's equipment if that's the best solution for the case. And we run into all colors and all makes and models in that scenario, and we need people that know how to run everything.
I could see that. Everybody's farm is a little bit different. Ben, for folks that might have somebody in their family or in their community who needs help this harvest, tell us one more time, what's the Farm Rescue website to make a referral?
Yes, if they would just go to farmrescue.org, they can click on the Refer a Family button there anytime, and they can just tell us a little bit about what the family has going on, what they're suffering, and they can give us a phone number or an email or some way to contact the family. And they can remain anonymous in that referral if they prefer to do so.
Fantastic, folks. Check that out. It's a great resource. Ben Smith, thanks for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Pioneer. Plant with confidence. Plant the #1 corn and soybean seed of the U.S. Pioneer.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Another rail merger is in the works, and this is a big one. Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern announced recently they're looking at a merger. Joining us now to talk about the details is Mike Steenhoek. He serves as the executive director at the Soy Transportation Coalition. And Mike, how big of a deal is this rail merger?
Well, it would create an entirely new classification of railroads. You've got right now there are 6 what are called Class 1 railroads operating in the United States, and that's kind of a designation based on the amount of revenue. So basically 6 large railroads. But when you would combine the Norfolk Southern, which primarily has trackage and a network in the eastern part of the United States, and Union Pacific, which is primarily in the western part of the U.S., you would all of a sudden create a coast-to-coast rail network, which would be significantly larger than the remaining other railroads. So it would be a significant seismic step within the rail industry, and so it merits our attention.
All right, so coast-to-coast trackage, Mike, as we think about that, is that predicted to save time or costs for shippers on the network?
Well, one of the fundamental realities and axioms within supply chains is that handoffs, whether it's across modes of transportation, so truck to rail or truck to barge, or within a mode of transportation, railroad company A to railroad company B, handoffs are costly. Freight doesn't like to be treated like a baton in a relay race where it gets handed off. So every time there is a handoff, it is expensive. And anytime you can mitigate and eliminate handoffs, that portends more efficiency and cost savings. So that is one of the things that we will hear from certainly the proponents of this deal, this potential deal, as well as some shippers about the possibility of having greater access to other parts of the country because you're mitigating and eliminating those handoffs. So that is one of the at least the advertised benefits of this. Now the question is, there's a difference between an advertised benefit and an actual benefit. And that's something that we're obviously going to be inquiring into as this proceeds.
And Mike, I think that sets up the next question. There could be some advantages, but I understand there are also some concerns. What are some of the risks of a merger like this?
Yeah, one of them is that history has taught us that when you do have consolidation within the rail industry, that what that will do is it'll adjust the competitive balance between a customer, many of them agricultural customers, and the railroads themselves. And what we want within agriculture is we want as many companies competing for our business. That's good for us. And so when all of a sudden you eliminate some of those companies, those transportation providers, you do adjust that competitive balance. And the net result of that can often be higher rates or a diminished service. And so that's a concern for us. It's also important to keep in mind that if our regulators allow this merger to proceed, they're going to regard this as a package deal. To be amenable to this deal will require them to also be amenable to another deal, which would be the 2 other U.S.-based railroads, BNSF Railway in the west and CSX in the east. And so one of the things that we're going to have to come to grips with our regulators is that what we eventually want to be, the destination we want to arrive at, is basically having 2 U.S.-based railroads operating coast-to-coast service, and that's a real significant question.
All right, so if this merger goes through, then it'd be hard to argue against that merger. We'll see where all this leads. Mike Steenhoek for the Soy Transportation Coalition, thank you so much for filling us in this week.
It's good to be with you.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
This weather segment is brought to you by SprayTech, making your spray applications effective and convenient. Use it once, trust it always. Greg Solier joins us again with a look at what's to come over the next couple weeks. And Greg, it looked wet on your forecast in the eastern part of the U.S. Who's going to get wet?
You know, there's a saying in the weather business, wet grounds beget a wetter weather pattern, dry, drought-ridden grounds, a different story. And we still have some degree of dryness and drought, but patchy. We've had timely rains, but it's situated over parts of east central Illinois, parts of northern Indiana, lower Michigan, southern Wisconsin. Everyone else, even back into the western Corn Belt, is in good shape. And look at this plume of 0.5 to 1, in some spots as much as 2 inches of rain. We don't need any more rain in the Carolinas, need more across Cotton Belt country. The dryness and drought, the story down through Florida. Everglades, would you believe, an exceptional drought. Same with the west and southwestern reaches of the country, scant moisture out there. So opportunities for some of those late planted varieties, corn and soybean fields all included, to get some rainfall, especially eastern and southern sections of the Corn Belt as the week wears on.
Well, now, how do temperatures start to shape up the week of August 18th?
You know, we're going back to school, ramping up the equipment for harvest. No shortage of summertime heat whatsoever. Here's the hot dome. Cloudiness keeps temperatures down a bit across the southwest. A couple of shots of some cool air into the St. Lawrence River Valley. So we continue to move things along in what should be an early and often harvest season. Start to it at which Gulf Coast areas down through the Rio Grande. This is good news. Maybe a couple of showers and thunderstorms, which you always have to watch for. Flash flooding there. Wet weather for the St. Lawrence River Valley, the Sioux back into the Pacific Northwest. Look at the expanding either normal or below on moisture over the middle part of the country, including much of the Corn Belt.
Does that above normal heat persist through the end of August?
It continues on. Here you go. Had a sneak peek, and here it is, above average. This is still capable of 90, 95 degree heat. I believe this is Farm Progress Show week as well. We're going to be sweating away at Decatur. Normal temperatures over the southeast, a little push of cooler air in the Pacific Northwest. There may be a little feed of tropical moisture in the southwest, accentuating the monsoon there. Maybe a name system here where it's practically September. We ought to get things going, maybe in the southwestern Atlantic, but significant rain. But much of the eastern states, parts of the eastern Corn Belt, high and dry through much of the middle part of the nation.
That first full week in September, Greg, what do you see?
No shortage of heat. Here it is over the middle and western reaches of the country. A little westward retrogression, cooler air into the northeast and New England. No shortage of moisture, but into the northern Corn Belt, eastern states, opportunities for the combines to get going across much of the central and western Corn Belt, back into the plains, and still dry across much of the west.
Our Farm Progress Update is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of heavy-duty grain carts and make the most of your harvest season. Visit brandt.ca for more. The Farm Progress Show is a huge event, but it's more than just field demonstrations and a chance to talk with the experts at the major agricultural companies. It's also a time to connect and network and learn a little bit about our industry. Joining us now is Peyton Fair. She's an event specialist here with Farm Progress. And Peyton, you're in charge of a number of special projects at the Farm Progress Show. Can you tell us about Women in the Field?
Yeah, Mike. So Women in the Field, we're doing a few different things this year. One of them is we're going to kick off with some programming. We'll have the Discover Ag podcast. Natalie and Tara will be joining us on the hospitality main stage on lot 643 at 2 p.m. on Wednesday of the show. And they'll be presenting their session, Ag in the Age of Virality. So that's going to be really exciting. And then after they do their presentation, we're going to have a networking reception for Women in the Field that's going to be sponsored by PepsiCo. And that's going to be an opportunity for all of us to get together and learn a little bit about each other, do some connection points there. Discover Ag is going to be hosting that as well. We'll do some meet and greet opportunities. And so that's going to be from 2:30 to 3:30. So we'll have that session at 2 o'clock and then roll right into that Women in the Field networking at 2:30.
Fantastic. It's always great to network with folks at the Farm Progress Show. And Peyton, I also understand you're helping folks learn a little bit more about cover crops. Can we talk about the plots?
Yeah, so the cover crop plot is a new feature at the Farm Progress Show. It's something we did at Husker Harvest Days last year. Green Cover, the same Nebraska-based company that did that plot out at Husker Harvest Days, will be joining us out at the Farm Progress Show with those exciting cover crop plots. Those are going to be on the north side of the grounds out at lot 1228. And so they're going to be doing crop walks at 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. every day to talk about those cover crops and how you can incorporate those into your farming operation and how you can use those to make yourself more sustainable. Use some regenerative practices and how those are applicable for the Midwest and row crop agriculture.
Fantastic. Those cover crops continue to grow in prevalence across our region. Take the time to learn a little bit about them specifically. And Peyton, of course, we've also got a lot of young folks looking for work in the ag industry. We've got a career fair at the Farm Progress Show.
Yes, another thing that we've never done before. We're really excited to launch this. You can actually register for that. So if you know somebody or if you are somebody that is looking for a career in agriculture, especially if you're a college student or somebody in technical school right now, we encourage you to go to the Farm Progress Show website and register for that career fair because that registration is live. But that's going to be on Thursday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we'll have companies that are participating in the career fair tent, which is going to be on lot 843. We'll also have some other companies that are participating that are scattered in their exhibit space throughout the showgrounds. So we'll have companies that are participating in two different ways. And if you are a career fair participant, you can get in the show for free on that day as well.
A lot of reasons to check it out, and there's something happening every single day at the Farm Progress Show. Peyton Fair, thank you so much for filling us in on the details.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me today, Mike.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. Caterpillar tractors, Caterpillar equipment, Cat diesel power, they'll help us feel the earth move with a half century of progress, and it will probably evoke a few memories for yours truly. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Lundell Plastics. Farmers, get your machinery ready for the harvest season ahead with those Poly Harvest products to help you minimize loss of grain, reduce crop damage, get every bushel when it really matters. From LundellPlastics.com Harvest Products. LundellPlastics.com. Well, I vividly remember my 6th summer. They built a new highway through part of our farm in Indiana, Highway 65, a straight shot north of the town of Owensville. That brought all kinds of equipment right past the back of our house that summer. I sat on the steps when I wasn't out of the field with Dad and Uncle Frank. I sat and watched those D4s, D6s, D9s moving the earth as they built that highway. Well, I will have a chance to see some of those again. The half century of progress coming up. One Caterpillar owner posted the other day he was getting his equipment serviced for Rantoul. The Heartland Earth Movers will not just show them, they will work them. Cat gray, cat yellow, even a military Caterpillar or two, we suspect. Eric Christenberry posted the other day he's got 60 Caterpillars. 60, he's hauling 2 to Rantoul. Eric, only 2? Oh, but Eric is hauling those cats more than 700 miles from North Carolina to the half century of progress at Rantoul. We'll count on seeing Eric and a lot of other Caterpillar owners and many of you at the half century of progress August 21st through the 24th at Rantoul, Illinois. We'll count on seeing Mark Stock, too. Here he is, as he is every week, with the Big Iron Report.
Well, hello, Max. We're excited to announce the auction for the Legacy Co-op in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska on Wednesday, August 13th. 48 items from their fleet will sell, including semi-trucks, Super Duty pickups, and liquid fertilizer applicators. Also, August 13th is the Dwayne Thomas Farm Retirement Auction by Colfax, Illinois. Dwayne will be selling his immaculate line of farm machinery: John Deere 8520 mechanical front, John Deere 9560 combine. And on Thursday, August the 14th, by Bird Island, Minnesota, you'll find a premium line of late model John Deere farm machinery. From track tractors, mechanical front tractors, late model combines, all selling with no reserve. And Vanguard Farms LLC by Forest City, Illinois, will sell their clean lineup of machinery: a John Deere 9530 four-wheel drive tractor, 8420 mechanical front tractor, John Deere 9760 combine. Plus, we have land selling on August the 13th in Rawls County, Missouri, August the 14th in McLean County, Illinois, and Hancock County, Illinois, and August 15th in Menard County, Illinois. You'll find quality farm machinery and some of the best land in the country. Visit Big Iron and Sullivan Auctioneers.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Gehringoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than the closest competitor at Gehringoff.com. Gehringoff, proudly built in the American heartland. This week, we're getting to know Brent DeSager. He's serving as the president of the Michigan State FFA for this upcoming school year. Brent, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Fill us in. Did you grow up on a farm or have an agricultural background?
Yes, I grew up living and working on my family's dairy farm. We milk about 3,000 cows, and I have always been really active, whether that be going out, feeding calves, going out, cleaning. Along with that, I have also showed cattle at our local county fair.
All right, lots of livestock experience. We love that. Brent, now you're serving as the Michigan State FFA. And how is Michigan FFA? Are you seeing memberships grow?
Absolutely. My team, the 2025 to 2026 state officer team, are actually the first ones that can say that we have over 10,000 members in Michigan.
Wow.
These 10,000 members are absolutely amazing, and we are seeing phenomenal growth among all of them.
That is fantastic to hear. Now, that is a great start already, but do you have any goals for your term as president?
Absolutely. I think that every single member that we have within our state brings something very special to the table. Every member has their own area to thrive, whether that be in the agricultural field or outside of it. Everyone has a unique talent that makes them amazing. My goal is to really find what that talent is and connect these members with the resources and people they need to have any success that they need and the opportunities they need to thrive.
There are some great opportunities in FFA, and it helps to have that connector working to bring everyone together. Ben, before we let you go, are your future plans? Do you hope to stay in agriculture?
Yes, absolutely. I'm heading to Michigan State University to pursue a degree in biosystems engineering, with which I hope to use the things that I learned to come back to my farm and really improve all aspects of agriculture.
Fantastic. Brent, thanks for joining us this week.
Of course, thanks for having me again.
Given the size of today's modern machinery, an equipment breakdown in the field can create a big challenge. For his tech segment this week, Chad Colby looks into a tool that can help keep that repair a little bit safer for folks on the ground.
I love great ideas that come from the shop, literally. Check this out. This is the Universal Tractor Jack from Flatland Farmer Innovations. What a simple, safe way to get your tractor airborne. As you can see here, one guy slid the jack underneath it, lifted it up with the 3-point. He's putting in the safety jacks, and their crew's going to work. Now, they're going to make a short job of swapping these tracks over, but what I wanted to show you is just how simple this jack system works. They got their tracks swapped, and look, he's pulling up the jack stands, and he's going to lower that down, slide it right back out. This works on, obviously, any tractor with a 3-point. It can be used with or without a quick hitch. It's fully adjustable, so it's going to work on whatever kind of spacing you have at the back of your tractor. It's got high capacity caster wheels, which are more than enough to support the weight of the tractor. You do need a minimum drawbar clearance to make that work of a little over 15 inches. The cool part is it makes simple work of whether you're changing tracks, checking bogey wheels like these guys were doing here before they swap tracks, or changing duals, or probably the biggest thing is, what about any kind of service work on the back of a tractor? It's a safe, stable way to support the back of the tractor while you're underneath working. And there's no load on the hydraulic system, because once you get it raised and it's sitting on the jacks, there's essentially no weight on the 3-point. I just think this is super cool. You can learn more about these guys if you go out to flatlandfarmer.com. And I've got one more product from these guys I got to show you. Is look at this. They had another problem, and that was they wanted some more capacity with their mini hoppers putting in plots. So they made these little extensions, and these look super cool as well. You can learn more about these guys at the Farm Progress Show. They'll be in the Barker Implement booth. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. And folks, don't go anywhere. We'll have more This Week in Agribusiness coming up after this. The U.S. Grains Council celebrated 65 years in existence in 2025, and they're celebrating that long-time impact on the grain markets. Part of that celebration includes a new name. Joining me now to talk about it is Kerry Siferath. He's a vice president with the U.S. Grains and Bioproducts Council. Kerry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here this morning.
Let's talk about this. The U.S. Grains Council is now the U.S. Grains and Bioproducts Council. Kerry, what is a bioproduct?
Well, a byproduct is anything that predominantly today, anything that's coming out of an ethanol plant, a grain-based ethanol plant. In the U.S. Grain Council, we've been promoting exports of distillers dried grains, or DDGS, for about 20 years now. In the last 10 or 11 years, promoting the exports of grain-based ethanol as well, and so trying to incorporate those products that are in our practice for a couple of decades here even now, but have that part of our name as well.
So talk to me about how this is going to impact the organization going forward. Do you see those bioproducts, those value-added products, being a larger part of what U.S. agriculture will be exporting?
Very much. I mean, our members overwhelmingly supported the name change at our 65th anniversary at our annual Board of Delegates meeting just here last week. But yeah, that's to be able to export more of our grain, corn, barley, and sorghum in the form of higher value products, whether that be grain-based ethanol, whether that be DDGS, corn fermented protein, and some of the other co-products coming out of ethanol plants. And then we wanted that name change to be represent. There may be products, green chemicals, things we don't even know about today that may be coming on in the future, and so our name can continue to move forward in the coming 10 or 20 years to be able to promote those kind of products that we may not even know will exist at the moment.
That's true. There's innovation always happening in the world of agriculture. And of course, you made this change a week or so ago at the annual meeting. And this is a weird year for trade, Carrie, to put it mildly. What are the attitudes at the U.S. Grains and Bioproducts Council as you look forward broadly from trade's perspective?
Again, we're excited. Obviously, grain prices are not where most producers like to see them, but we're going to set a new export record for corn exports. We set a record for ethanol exports last marketing year at about 1.75 billion gallons. We have another month in the current marketing year. We track ethanol in the same marketing year as corn, but we're going to export over 2 billion gallons of ethanol. And so growth in those products can continue. And that's, we're just setting a new bar. We our next goal is, how long does it take us to get to those 3 billion gallons of exports? And just the excitement that we see and additional countries around the world wanting to have ethanol and other biofuels as part of their on-road ethanol or on-road fuel stream. And there's a lot of excitement. We may be a few years away from it being a major part of it, but sustainable aviation fuel, even sustainable marine fuel, and how ethanol, corn-based, sorghum-based ethanol can play a part of that as we look at the growth of those products globally.
A lot of optimism as we look out to the future. Carrie Siferath with the U.S. Grains and Bioproducts Council, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. Be sure to catch us next time right here for This Week in Agribusiness. Have a great week, everybody. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studios. For more than 70 years and 3 generations, Strauss has been manufacturing high-performance, German-engineered workwear, work boots, and safety equipment. Prepare for the next growing season at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.